Welcome to Journey Mill Road, Sayreville, New Jersey, and the Starland Ballroom. And welcome to your Touchdowns All Day Setbreak Report. I'm Max Dawson, the co-host of the Touchdowns All Day podcast with John Barber. And for tonight's Setbreak programming, I've picked out a few excerpts from some show recordings and from some past Touchdowns All Day episodes that I think really get to the heart of why we're talking so much about Sayreville and the Starland Ballroom these days. Over the last few weeks, I've been doing a deep dive into the history of the Biscuits at the Starland, and you're going to see a couple of excerpts from those interviews. First up is an interview with Dan Berkowitz, the founder of CID and more recently 100X Hospitality, the former Disco Biscuits road manager. After that, we're going to check in with Jake Szufnarowski. Jake was the talent buyer at the Wetlands in the late 1990s, and he is currently the talent buyer at the Sayreville. I asked Dan and Jake the same question. Why? What is it about the Starland? What is it about this venue that brings out such intensity from the Biscuits and their fans? Along with presenting their answers, I'm also going to share with you some unseen video footage. It's going to be from some older shows from March of 2005. Now, recordings of these shows have circulated before, but what I'm going to show you instead of the final edited versions is the raw footage from the pit. And I think that there's something really cool about this vantage point that we've never seen before. You're getting the energy of the crowd. You're getting really close-up shots of the band. It's rough. The camera angles sometimes get weird. The camera gets shaky, but believe me, the energy, it's all about trying to capture that Starland energy. And if you were at the show last night, you felt it, that pie jam. So grateful that the band brought it back. We had the debut of Scars of the Brave. Who knows what the band has in store for us in this final set of the tour. But in the meantime, please enjoy this programming. Check out Touchdowns All Day if you haven't already. And finally, let me give a few shout outs to some of the folks who helped put all of this together. Of course, John Goldberg, Jake Szufnarowski, and Dan Berkowitz for their participation in our mini-series on Starland. I also want to thank Dave Cole for providing the awesome image that started off this broadcast. And I want to thank Chris Lonergan at Nugs for providing the archival video footage that you've been seeing throughout the weekend and that we've been sharing on our social media. Everybody plays a role, and I am just one part of a big team trying to bring you guys cool content during these shows. So stay tuned, check out the interviews, check out the footage. The band will be back in no time, and for the last time for a few months, I'm going to say we are...
We're mass communicating! We're mass communicating! We're mass communicating!
sake of someone like myself who's actually never been to the Starland Ballroom, can you describe the Starland, and in doing so, maybe convey to me and listeners, what is it about this place that has brought out such intense reactions from the band and the Disco Biscuits community?
So it's a roadhouse on the side of a road in the middle of New Jersey. That's through a nondescript town. It's it's in central New Jersey. Some people might argue it's in North Jersey, but it's not. It's in central New Jersey. Um, it is. I always love venues that are wide, not long. The most classic example of that is the Wetlands. It's wide, it's not long. You could be 10 people left of the stage or 10 people right of the stage, but like you can only really be like 8 people back at the Wetlands. Like it was real short. Starland Ballroom is a much bigger version of that, where it's wide and not long. So like everywhere you are, there's a really great place to see the band. There's bars everywhere. It is, it's super conveniently located for everyone. Nobody is walking there. Like it's not like, it's not that kind of place. It's definitely off the beaten path, but it is conveniently located for, tens of millions of people in the United States. New Jersey also is a underserved concert market. And, the Disco Biscuits have such a strong history in Philadelphia, New York, and New Jersey, and such a strong core fan base, and like kind of the most intense fans live within striking distance of the Starland Ballroom. And when I say intense, I mean passionate. The good type of intense. And I know that the band is super comfortable there. You probably have the stats, but I think it went from a 3-night stand to a 4-night stand to a 5-night stand I think it was like 2005, 6, and 7, or 4, 5, and 6. But whatever it was, there was at least 12 shows in a 3-year span. And all were extremely well received. And it's just a special place. I mean, the band is super comfortable there. There's a hang, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. There's this great room downstairs where, that's where. Oh, right, you haven't been there.
I haven't been.
So, what was also super special there is the staff and us really got along, which, I don't want to pull the curtain back too far, but it was pretty rare back in those days for us and the buildings. Obviously there were places like the Electric Factory and, Roseland and, places that like our homies worked. But, we'd go to these places where we didn't really know anybody. And, sometimes it would click, most times it wouldn't. But at the Starland Ballroom, like we loved them and they loved us. Like there was just this really special bond between the people that worked there and us. And that was the band and the crew and some of the most passionate fans. I mean, and I don't know if you do video for these, but if you do, maybe we can like throw it up on the screen because the picture still exists. They took a picture. Craig Purdy, aka the Head, legendary Biscuits fan, who I do believe still comes around every now and then when the Biscuits play in New England. They took a picture of him and they put it up in the kitchen and they named him the Employee of the Month. And we'd all come in the back door through the kitchen, which is very cool, very Goodfellas like.
Oh yeah.
That is not, that's not the last. It's the last time I'll mention how it felt like Goodfellas there, but it's not the last connection.
Okay.
But they you walk through the kitchen and right before you get into the venue up top, like clear as day, I can see it. They put a picture of Head, an Employee of the Month, and it's the funniest picture. And it's just like, that's an example of the bond between the building and us. Like they take who some places might deem the Head a nuisance, or Biscuits fans in general. The Head kind of represents the Biscuits fans at large, lovable, passionate, but to some squares might be seen as a nuisance. If the world was filled with Craig Purdy's, the world would be a better place, though. But they celebrated him and they embraced us. And that has a lot to do with the band's relationship with the building and how the band plays and the fans and the building's relationship with the fans. Like, and obviously it's 30 years later, things are very different now. But, back in those days, we'd show up some places and the building was not ready for a Disco Biscuit show and it
Yes.
wouldn't go well.
Yes.
I
remember many of those nights.
Yes. And it would not go well and it would end horribly. We don't have to get into that. But that never happened at the Starland Ballroom. They treated our fans very well. Of course, there were some people that didn't deserve to be indoors in a public space, so they were, but they were handled graciously and they were handled fairly and they were handled with care. Because
Yes.
at the end of the day, they knew that they were the Disco Biscuits fans and they'll probably be back to the Starland Ballroom 10 times if we're cool about it. I don't even think it was that calculated. They were just nice. They were like good to us.
Yeah.
So the fans loved it. The band loved it. And the band responded by playing well and by playing time and time again. I'm thinking about it, like, we were always in such a good mood there. Like, I go back to the memories and there's this big, great downstairs room where everybody hangs out and it's not the band's dressing room. It's really a hospitality room. And I just remember so many amazing moments in that room where we're laughing, we're singing, we're having a great time. Our dearly departed Johnny was, a centerpiece of a lot of those good times. Just a, I don't know, special place. It makes no sense. It's just one of those things. It's magic.
Whimsical and petty motion goes in my mind. Scabby bars are looking down at the word fine. Well, I tried to dust an angel's on wings and watch her fly. Reality from meaning to the story back and get in line. We ordered out for mine and trouble. Oh, it is happening, it's coming up. Tony Sword Jones, he's giving it right. We ordered out for paradise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. The calorie of pen and motion of the life of line is sad. It's chivalry, right? Commotion on the road of a dread. And all the people he and the angels out to fly. The best story in all great rolling thicker than a we are now for mine with the boat. It's coming up. Cornerstone junkies giving it right. We order now for paradise. Coast is nice, vision on a tide wind twice. One let it travel and I'm on device, name it perfume. Apple by the coast is nice, get on. Vision on a tide wind twice. One let it travel and I'm on device, name is the perfume.
any hypothesis about what it is about this venue or this location that produces such intensity?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think one of the reasons I agreed to go work for the Starland at the Starland was I loved the fact that it's wider than it is deep and it's covered with wood. There's tons of wood inside the venue, and it felt to me like if Wetlands was 4 times its size, it would have been a lot like the Starland Ballroom. And when venues are wider than they are deep, there's a real opportunity to get up close and personal to the band, as opposed to when a venue is just long, because the further away you get from the stage, that's simple physics. But like when it's just one line back, every person is further and further away. But at the Starland, you can be on both sides of the stage and all the way across the front. So the furthest person away from the stage is way closer than the furthest person would be in your typical 2,000 capacity club. So I think it's the fact that there's a ton of wood in the room that gives it a homey feel. Wood, as anyone who's ever been around much audio knows, that wood really soaks up sound in a wonderful way and reflects it in a much warmer way than concrete and steel would, which is what a lot of venues are made out of now. And also, like, the sight lines are way better, so you just feel like you're more of a part of the performance. And on top of that, if you haven't been to the Starland before, then getting there sort of makes you feel like you're at the beginning of an episode of Law and Order, because there's these 2 major roads on either side of the Starland, but they're each 1.5 miles away. So there's one road that connects those other 2. When I say major roads, they're just, they're not really major roads. They're not highways or anything, but there's this one road that's about 3 miles long called the Journey Mill Road. And right smack dab in the middle of that is the Starland Ballroom. And whichever side you come into Journey Mill Road from, you're passing through just basically trucking warehouses. And then you get right to the center, and on one side of the road is the VFW hall. Their parking lot becomes our parking lot. So a lot of people park over there. There's a tank in front of the VFW hall. And then there's the Starland on the other side of the road that's surrounded on 3 sides by a junkyard and 1 side by a swamp. So you really get the sense that you're in the middle of nowhere, and you sort of get the sense that anything goes once you're inside. And that's obviously not the truth, especially it might have been a lot more the truth in the early 2000s when Tony and Jerry owned the place. And by all accounts, it was. Like, it was literally anything goes back then. And then AEG bought it, and things like insurance and attorneys became part of the equation. So people had to enforce the rules a little bit more. And these days, of course, rules are enforced, but also there's a lot less to worry about enforcing in 2025 than there was in 2005, because people just don't take the amount and kinds of drugs that we did back then, and they don't act with as much wanton abandon as they did back then. I'm not to say it doesn't happen, but there were a lot of Biscuit shows back in the day. I remember this one time we went to see them at the Silo in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
They did a 2-night stand at the Silo. You were there, and I was pretty high on acid after the show, and sitting in my bed in the hotel that was like across the parking lot from the Silo, and I saw a guy ride down the hotel hallway on a unicycle. And then I was like, there's no way that happened, right? I'm just tripping. And then I ran out into the hallway, and yeah, he was there. And I don't think that's going to happen. And at the Old Bridge, Hampton Inn, on the night of March 14th. I would love it if it did, though. I would really love it, and I would hope.
I feel like now you've thrown down the challenge. If you are a unicyclist who is listening to Touchdowns All Day, please get in touch, and we'll see you in the hallway at the Hampton.
Hey, I'll tell you what, first guy to roll up to the Starland Ballroom and enter the parking lot and make it all the way to the front door on a unicycle, I'll give you a free ticket.
For an entire generation of Biscuits fans, the Starland is their mecca. And they think about and tell the stories of those shows still to this day as if they're some of their warmest and fondest memories of not only the band, but also of their own, coming of age and youth. And so for the band to come back here full circle after all this time, and not only that, but to be doing it with you, is a very, very exciting and fitting culmination to a very long story.
Yeah, I'm excited too, man. And not only just because I got to book this show, but I'm excited because the Biscuits are playing arguably better than they've played maybe in their whole career. I've been to a bunch of shows in the last few years. I've listened to some of the recordings. I love that you hit me to a lot of it and send me and say, "Hey, this is a fucking great version of this," and I check that stuff out, obviously. And so I'm really excited that the Biscuits are not only coming back to play, but that I think I would assume in their own way they're coming back to say, like, we should have never been away. Like, this is Starland. We're the Disco Biscuits. We're better than ever, and we're going to show you guys, that we nasty, but we good.